My best friend's brother once called me innocent, like it was a fact, not an opinion. Maybe that's why, when his sister walked into the shop that day, I couldn't stop wondering if she believed it too. The shop was always too quiet after lunch. Fluorescent lights hummed above, and the smell of oil and rubber clung to the air, no matter how much the doors stayed propped open. I was halfway through wiping grease off my hands when the bell over the door rang. I looked up expecting a customer in a rush. The usual, someone frowning, already rehearsing how much they hated spending money here. Instead, it was her. Elena, my best friend's sister. She carried herself like she'd already been somewhere else, in another world entirely, and this pit stop wasn't where she wanted to be. Sunglasses in hand, hair pinned loosely back, jacket hanging over her arm. Not overdressed, not casual either, just deliberate. Everything about her seemed chosen, down to the way her gaze took in the shop, measured, before it landed on me. "You work here?" she asked, and the way her voice settled in the room felt like it lowered the hum of the lights. I nodded, suddenly too aware of the dirt on my hands, the smudge on my cheek. "Yeah, for about a year now." She smiled. Quick, polite, almost like she was testing how much she should give away. "Didn't know that. I thought you were still in school." The word school stuck in the air between us. Maybe it wasn't meant to, but it made me straighten my back. I wanted to say something clever, something that would make her realize I wasn't just the kid who hung around her brother's room playing video games. But all I managed was, "Guess I grew up when nobody was looking." Her eyebrows lifted the tiniest bit, like she wasn't sure whether to laugh or apologize. "Fair enough." She pulled a set of keys from her bag and set them on the counter. Cars making a noise I can't describe. "Can you check?" I took the keys, brushing against her fingers for a second longer than necessary. Not on purpose, it just happened. But when I looked up, her eyes had already moved away, scanning the posters on the wall. It should have been routine. Customers hand over keys, I hand them to the guys in the back, job done. But I found myself hesitating. My thumb rested on the metal, still warm from her hand. "I'll take a look myself," I said, and it came out steadier than I felt. She tilted her head slightly, studying me in that way older people do when they're half amused, half curious. "You don't have to. I'm sure anyone here could." "Yeah, but," I shrugged, forcing a smile. "Might as well see if I can figure it out." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It stretched, filled with the sound of a wrench clattering somewhere in the back and the faint echo of a radio playing an old song. She leaned against the counter, not fidgeting, not impatient, just present. That's when I realized how close she was. Close enough that I caught a trace of her perfume, something faint and complicated, the kind of scent that doesn't hit you all at once but stays in your memory. "You always this determined?" she asked finally, her voice softer now. I met her eyes, unsure if she was teasing me or genuinely curious. "Only when it matters." She didn't reply, just looked at me for a beat too long before glancing toward the garage. And maybe I imagined it, but her smile lingered like she was weighing what she'd just seen. I carried her keys to the car, but the heat of that pause followed me, stubborn, impossible to shake. Because if she really thought I was still innocent, she hadn't looked close enough. I didn't expect to see her again so soon. Customers usually dropped their cars off and disappeared, but Elena came back the next afternoon. Said she had a little time to kill, while I looked under the hood. The car was nothing complicated, loose belt, a fix I could have handed off to anyone. But when she leaned against the doorway to the garage, arms folded, sunglasses perched in her hair, I stayed put. I wanted to work with her standing there, even if I couldn't explain why. "You don't mind me watching?" she asked. Her voice was casual, but her posture wasn't. She wasn't leaning like someone relaxed, more like someone who didn't trust the ground under her feet. I shook my head. "Not at all. Most people don't care enough to stick around." "I care," she said, then corrected herself with a small shrug. "Well, I like to know things are done right." I glanced at her hands, the way her fingers tapped her arm as though she needed somewhere to put the restlessness. I wondered if she realized how much that small movement gave away. The belt squealed when I tested it, high-pitched, grating. She winced. "That's the sound I meant." "Yeah," I muttered, tightening the tensioner. "I've heard worse." She let out a laugh, short, unguarded, the kind that didn't match the careful way she carried herself. I caught myself staring, then looked quickly back at the engine, pretending to focus. It was strange, seeing her like this. When I was younger, she was always the woman passing through her parents' kitchen in heels, or talking on the phone with some clipped authority too far above my orbit. Now, up close, I noticed the tired edge to her smile. The faint line at her brow she tried to smooth away. "You look exhausted," I said before I could stop myself. Her hand froze mid-tap. For a second, her face softened, unguarded. Then she gave a quick half-smile, the kind meant to close doors. "That obvious?" "Only if you look closely," I said quietly. She didn't answer right away, just pressed her lips together, watching me as though debating something she'd never say out loud. Finally, she sighed. "Long week." The way she said it felt like more than just work, but I didn't push. I tightened the last bolt, wiped my hands, and closed the hood. "There," I said. "Should be good now." She took the keys from me, her fingers brushing mine again. This time, she didn't move them away so fast. For half a second, her hand lingered before she let go. And just like that, it was gone. She was tucking her hair back, thanking me, stepping toward the sunlight outside. But I stood there, holding on to the ghost of her touch, the softness in her eyes when she forgot to be guarded. It was nothing, just a pause. But I knew I'd be thinking about it all night. The rain started just after closing. Heavy drops slapped against the shop windows, turning the streetlights into blurred halos. I was locking up when I noticed her car still in the lot. She sat inside, hands on the steering wheel, not moving. I tapped on the glass. She rolled it down halfway, rain misting her hair. "It won't start," she said simply. The lot was empty, the shop quiet except for the storm. I slid into the passenger seat, brushing water from my jacket. The space felt too small suddenly, the air thick with the scent of rain and whatever perfume lingered on her. "Mind if I try?" I asked, reaching for the keys. She nodded, pulling her hand back quickly, almost like she didn't want our skin to meet again. The engine coughed, sputtered, then gave up. "You'll need to leave it overnight," I said. Her sigh fogged the window. "And how am I supposed to get home?" The question hung there. I knew what I wanted to offer. "I'll take you." But saying it out loud felt like stepping over a line I wasn't sure she'd drawn yet. Instead, I said, "There's a diner 2 blocks down. We can wait until the rain slows, and I'll call someone for you." She hesitated, then gave a small nod. "All right." The diner was nearly empty, just the hum of neon and the clink of cutlery from the back. We slid into a booth, water dripping from our jackets. She ordered coffee, black. I did the same. For a while, we said nothing, just sat listening to the rain against the glass. Then she leaned forward, elbows on the table. "You don't talk much, do you?" I smiled faintly. "Only when there's something worth saying." She tilted her head, studying me with those sharp eyes that made me feel seen in ways I wasn't used to. "And now? Anything worth saying?" The words hovered on my tongue. "I can't stop thinking about you. I notice everything. The tired way you smile, the way you hold yourself like you're always bracing for something." But I just shook my head. "Not yet." Her laugh was quiet, softer than before. She wrapped her hands around the coffee mug, and I noticed how small her movements became when she wasn't performing confidence. Fingers tightening, loosening, like she didn't know where to put them. The silence between us grew charged, like the storm outside had found its way into the booth. My knee almost brushed hers beneath the table. Almost. And then her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, her face tightening before she turned it over without answering. "Everything okay?" I asked carefully. She forced a smile. "It's nothing." But the way her hand stayed pressed against the phone said otherwise. I wanted to reach across the table, to take her hand away from whatever weight it was carrying. Instead, I held still, nails digging into my palm under the table. When she finally looked back at me, her expression softer now, her lips parted just slightly, like she might say something. The waitress arrived with the check. And whatever that moment could have been slipped away, just out of reach. The next time I saw her, it wasn't in the shop. She came by after hours, headlights cutting across the dark lot. I was sweeping the floor, ready to lock up, when her shadow filled the doorway. "I didn't want to bother you," she said, voice low. You're not bothering me. I leaned the broom against the wall, heart already picking up speed. What's wrong with the car this time? Her smile was thin. Nothing. That single word carried too much. She stepped inside, rain still clinging to her jacket, and for a moment neither of us moved. The silence was thick, but it didn't feel empty. I gestured to the workbench. You want to sit? She shook her head, arms folded. No, I shouldn't have come. Something in the way she said it hit me harder than I expected. Then why did you? She blinked, caught off guard. Her eyes darted away, toward the shelves stacked with tools, anywhere but me. Finally, she exhaled, her voice breaking in its quietness. I don't know. I stepped closer, not too close, just enough that the air shifted between us. Elena. She looked at me then, really looked, and it was the kind of stare that made the room fall away. The lights hummed, a car passed on the road outside, but none of it touched us. Her throat moved as she swallowed. What are we doing? The words landed heavier than any confession. Not accusatory, not mocking, just tired. Honest. I couldn't answer right away. My chest tightened, my hands flexing at my sides. I don't know, I admitted. Her laugh was dry, humorless. She turned, pressing her palms against the edge of the workbench. This isn't supposed to happen. No. I agreed, my voice rough. It's not. The silence that followed wasn't safe anymore. It pulsed, like both of us were standing too close to something dangerous. I caught myself staring at the way her shoulders slumped, like the weight she carried had finally slipped through the cracks. For once, she wasn't composed, wasn't the confident woman who walked into rooms with everything under control. She just looked human, tired. And in that tiredness, I saw the thing she never said out loud, the same thing burning inside me. I wanted to reach for her. God, I wanted to. But instead, I forced myself still, jaw tight. Her eyes flicked back to me, searching, and when she spoke again, her voice trembled so slightly I almost missed it. I'm not who you think I am. The room went quiet again, so quiet I heard the storm starting back up outside. I didn't move, didn't breathe, because for the first time, I wasn't sure if she was warning me away or asking me to see her anyway. It was late again, the shop emptied out, the smell of oil fading into the night air. She was sitting on the hood of her car, waiting while I finished the last bit of paperwork. I told myself I didn't mind her staying, but every second stretched too thin. When I stepped outside, she wasn't scrolling her phone or checking the time. She was staring at something in her hand. A small, worn photo. I paused. Everything okay? She looked up fast, almost guilty, and slipped the photo halfway into her jacket pocket. Yeah, just sorting through old things. But her voice was softer than usual, cracked at the edges. For once, she didn't cover it with a smile. I leaned against the car beside her, not pushing. Who was it? Her eyes flickered to me, then back to the pocket. She pulled the photo out again, slowly this time, and held it between us. It was a man, younger than she is now, standing beside her in front of some lake. He had that easy grin people wear when they think the future is wide open. Her arm was looped through his. She wasn't smiling at the camera, though. She was smiling at him. My husband, she said quietly. Well, ex-husband. I swallowed, nodding once. You don't have to, I know. Her thumb brushed the corner of the photo. He left 6 years ago. Said he couldn't stay. Too many reasons, none that really mattered. The words weren't bitter. They were empty, like she'd rehearsed them so many times the sharp edges had worn off. I don't usually talk about it, she added, voice even lower now. People get uncomfortable, or they tell me I'm better off. I looked at her, the rain-slick street lamp light catching the tired crease near her mouth. Do you want me to say that? Her laugh was small, almost soundless. No, so I didn't. I just stayed beside her, both of us staring at that frozen version of her life. And then she turned the photo so I had to see it again. Her gaze searched mine. You remind me of him sometimes. Not the way he was when he left. The way he was before. The words landed in my chest like a weight I wasn't ready for. I wanted to ask how, what part of me echoed someone she once loved enough to marry. But I couldn't. My throat tightened. My hands dug into the metal edge of the car. She slipped the photo back into her pocket and finally looked straight at me. Not guarded, not polite, just raw. That's dangerous for me, she whispered. I didn't trust myself to move, didn't trust my voice to say anything that wouldn't break the air between us. So I just stayed there, close enough to feel her warmth through the night chill, the echo of her confession vibrating in the silence. And I knew nothing between us could be the same again. She stopped coming by for a few days after that night with the photo. I told myself I understood. Too much had been said, a line crossed. Still, I caught myself listening for the sound of her car in the lot, scanning the doorway like I'd willed her into existence. When she finally showed again, it wasn't with the same calm presence. She looked like she hadn't slept much, hair pinned back carelessly, jacket hanging off one shoulder. Car's fine, she said before I could ask. I just needed somewhere quiet. The shop was nearly empty, the others gone home. I nodded, pushing the broom aside, pretending like my pulse hadn't jumped at her words. You can stay. She sank onto the old stool by the counter, resting her elbows on her knees. The silence stretched. Normally I'd fill it with some small thing, asking about the car, the weather, but this time I didn't. I shouldn't keep showing up here, she said finally, her voice soft but heavy. It's unfair. To who? I asked. Her eyes lifted to mine. To you. To me. To everyone, maybe. I swallowed hard, fighting the instinct to tell her she was wrong. Instead, I stepped closer, slow, careful. If it was just unfair, you wouldn't be here. That broke something in the air. She let out a laugh, short, shaky. Then she pressed her palms together like she was praying. I don't know what this is. I don't even know what I want it to be. I moved until I was standing right in front of her. She didn't back away. Her shoulders rose and fell with a breath she seemed afraid to release. Neither do I admitted. My voice sounded rougher than I intended, but I know I don't want it to stop. Her eyes searched mine, desperate for an answer she hadn't already rehearsed. For a moment, I thought she might speak, might put words to the ache pulsing between us. But she didn't. Instead, she let the silence speak. I reached down without thinking, just enough for my fingers to brush against hers where they rested on her knees. She didn't pull back. Her hand turned, slowly, deliberately, until her palm was open against mine. We stayed like that. No rush, no declarations. Just the weight of her hand in mine, warm, fragile, impossibly real. Her forehead lowered until it touched my chest. A quiet surrender, not dramatic, not planned. I stood still, feeling her breath against me, my hand tightening slightly as if to say I'm here. We didn't kiss. We didn't say what we were both thinking. But in that small, stolen stillness, I knew the ground had shifted forever. She lifted her head, met my eyes once more, and whispered the only truth either of us could bear. We can't go back. And I understood. This was the beginning and the ending, all at once. Looking back now, I don't think either of us could explain how it happened. Not in a way that makes sense on paper. A 20-something kid in coveralls, a woman who had lived a whole other life before I'd even finished mine. But it wasn't about sense. It was about something quieter. I used to think love was this huge declaration, something you shouted from rooftops. With her, it was the opposite. It was silence that said more than words, a hand held longer than it should have been. The way she leaned her forehead against my chest like it was the only safe place left. That night changed everything. Not because we crossed some line. Truth is, we didn't. It was because we admitted the line was there, and we were already standing on it together. Afterward, things didn't get easier. She pulled back, then came closer again. I wrestled with what it meant to want someone I was never supposed to want. But in the middle of all that, confusion, hesitation, guilt, there was also this strange clarity. She taught me that people aren't just who they are now. They're everything they've lived through. Every regret, every heartbreak, every choice. And sometimes, when you're lucky, you catch someone in the moment when they're brave enough to let you see all of it. And me? I stopped trying to be innocent. Not by proving something, but by realizing I didn't need to. She didn't want a version of me pretending to be older, or tougher, or more sure. She wanted someone who showed up, listened, noticed the small things. Someone who could sit in the silence without running from it. I don't know if what we had was love in the way people usually define it, but it was real. Real enough that it shifted how I think about connection. Real enough that I'll never forget the way her hand fit into mine, steadying us both even when nothing else felt steady. Sometimes I wonder if she ever tells anyone about me. Probably not. Maybe I'll always be the secret tucked between her past and her present. But I've learned that some stories don't need to be told out loud to matter. They live inside you, shaping the way you move through the world. That's what she became for me. The proof that love isn't about timing or rules or even making sense. It's about finding the one person who can stand with you in the quiet and make it feel like enough. And maybe that's all we're ever looking for. Sparkles, if this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?